In this episode,
acupuncture was quackery. It was in the quackery, and I mean, we had to go for Congress, testify, Yeah, they were going to just get rid of it in the beginning.
Unreal.
Well,
but that was the plan.
Well, AMA, FDA, this is a threat. One of the physicians in the office was Chinese. So here we have a Chinese doctor, Western chain, and then you have a white guy, me. I'm an acupuncturist, studying Chinese medicine.
People say, energy, what are you talking about energy? And I tell them, how do you send a text message to somebody in Europe or in wherever you were, in the next town? How do you do that? You send a text message, they get it a second or two later, and they respond. How many cables do you see going through the air? It's all energy.
Talk about cancer. We've seen a 550% increase in cancer the last 4 years.
No way.
Way. I have a text from an oncologist, 25 years in the business. Never seen anything like it. Can't understand it. These are not natural occurring cancers. They're going from stage 2 to stage 4 within 6 to 8 weeks is totally unheard of. Biblically, all life is in the blood therein is reflective of your consciousness, your mind, your emotions. But how I was trained it is more on the esoteric level of the holographic appearances that I see in blood. In every drop of blood, as Edgar Casey say, you can, quote, diagnose. Then we had wheatgrass growing, and we would grind the wheatgrass and drink the chlorophyll, and we get really high on that.
Oh,
wow.
yeah, I got dizzy once when I drank too much.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's powerful stuff, but it cleanses the blood and is very close to the hemoglobin. So I was just young, 6'8". I didn't know any difference, but they wanted to give me a vaccine, I don't know what it was, tetanus or something like that. No way.
You were 6 or 8 years old.
Even at that age, I was running away and underneath the dining room table, and he couldn't catch me.
Hello, everyone. This is Health in Focus with Jacobus. I am your host, Jacobus Hollewijn. We are talking on this program about health, healing, and healthy lifestyles with experts in the field of natural medicine and regular medicine. We're not here to diagnose, treat, or cure. We're here to educate. And so during these discussions, all kinds of topics could come up. Things that we say may sound controversial, but we invite you to do more research yourself. I love this field. I've been in it for about 30 years, and I've learned a lot from 19 years of radio show and doing these type of interviews on podcasts. So it is absolute pleasure for me to invite guests now in the studio and let them talk about their own passion, their research, their work as physicians or as researchers. And today is definitely no exception. Dr. Thomas Sexton is my guest. I have known Dr. Thomas for 40 years. I've known him for 40 years, but then professionally, I would say the last 30 years. And I had him on my radio show several times. And I'm always fascinated when he talks. There is so much going on in his brain. He has done a lot of research and is still doing a lot of research. And he has helped a lot of customers, I should say patients in his case. And I thought this time on this program, I like him to introduce himself to explain more his own history, when he started. I would say he's done it for about 50 years, but there is so much in between 50 years ago and where we are today. So Dr. Thomas Sexton, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Jacobus. It's always a pleasure to be with you. We used to do these radio show programs.
Yeah.
What was on Mendenhall?
That's right.
KBZ.
KMMS.
KMMS. Yes, that was always a pleasure, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You would have several guests in at a time. But I'm new to YouTube. I'm very shy about social media. I've refrained from really exposing myself too much because of what it is I do. In alternative medicine, you could say. We've been under the scrutiny of the AMA, the FDA, for many, 150 years, you might say, the inception. and the character assassination of naturopaths, chiropractors in the beginning. So there's been this contentious atmosphere of health and healing here in the United States and its development.
Yeah.
And I am 44 years practicing acupuncture, Chinese medicine. I was one of the first licensed acupuncturists in the United States.
That's amazing.
I was in the first group, 3 days of testing. We brought in people from the Korean background, the Japanese background, the Chinese, the people that were working and learning from their father in Chinatown. We brought them all under one umbrella, which was quite a humongous political task to do that, and then see if they're qualified to be able to, have some safety assurance for the public.
Okay.
So we were very fortunate to have educational laws already placed in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The first schools were set up prior to instituting these laws. So we had a foundation of training that was available, 3,000 hours of training
Wow.
in Chinese medicine. How I studied it was back just evening courses, and
Yeah.
it's like I'm fascinated with this. This is another piece of the puzzle for me, because we get into health out of our own illnesses, out of our own sicknesses, why we're not feeling well. I mean, I had my own personal health crisis when I was 18. I traveled around the world. I got very sick in Southeast Asia, and put all this in a nutshell. There's a lot of explanations, but Chinese medicine is 4,000 years old. It has a history. This is where I was exposed to it in Southeast Asia in my travels, and I participated with a Buddhist monk in helping him get Chinese herbs. So I never thought too much about it, but for my own personal journey, it's like I couldn't get enough of learning, of education. This is a whole new world.
Yeah.
But I came through it through my own suffering, through my own life choices with drugs and alcohol and abuse, misuse, you could say, and it caught up to me. In Southeast Asia, I had a motorcycle accident, had a burn. My natural tendency was to go into the ocean. I grew up in Cape Cod. I grew up in Wellesley, Massachusetts, very wealthy society. We didn't see poor. We didn't see beggars. I couldn't wait to leave when I was 18 to explore the world. I'd see it on TV every Sunday as a kid growing up on the National Geographic Channel or on Walt Disney, the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, all these beautiful places. It's like, I can't wait
want
to
to go there, yes.
I got a job as a newspaper delivery boy at Christmas to get tips, to start making money. I started working weekends at a tool rental place in high school, and then all summer long, saved up money, got $1,100. I could buy a round-the-world ticket, Pan Am, $1,100. You just keep moving in one direction.
Yeah.
You could take 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
We got to figure out a plan. All my friends were going to college, university. I hitchhiked around and traveled and visited them, but they weren't really studying. Yeah. They were just living party style. At that time, we had the Vietnam War going on.
True.
There was every night I would watch that, and then the antithesis on TV was Star Trek and Kung Fu. J.J.
David
Kong.
Carradine.
Yeah. So these were
Carradine,
these the new age heroes, things you could look forward to that inspired people, that were righteous and had truth within their being, that spoke the truth. Because most of what you were receiving we had no idea what was really going on in Laos and Cambodia and all those areas.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was in Australia during that period of time.
Your father was a physician, is that right?
Yeah, he was an obstetrician, chief of medical staff, Mount Auburn Hospital in Boston. He worked quite fastidiously. I never saw much of him. He was an obstetrician, so he only had every other weekend off, and he had an associate, and they handled quite a few, deliveries all the time. You never know when a baby wants to be born.
That's true.
So many times in the middle of a snowstorm, he would drive 30 miles into the hospital, get police escorts, to get in when the weather was really bad, a northeaster or whatever.
Yeah.
And I myself was born in a snowstorm in New England at the time. And so these were a regular event. We'd had 3 feet of snow in one dumping.
You bet.
Oh, it's great. We're 5 days out of school.
Yeah, but not when you have to. Not when you have to deliver a baby.
Or deliver newspapers. It's a little trying, and you slip and fall. But in any case, So I had this passion. I went to medical school for a year, and decided that was not for me. They took after Vietnam War a lot of the PAs that came in. They wanted to get licensed as physicians. So I was in Philippi, West Virginia. Alderson Broaddus College. It was a PA course. So I wanted to start there. I'd been out of school for 2.5 years. I had to do speed reading courses, all the things to try to catch up. It was too much. And these people gone through Vietnam. They knew more than the instructors.
Yeah, they've been
in the
right
courses.
out there, yes, of course.
And so it was very high competition, and they're only taking 150 into the program out of 400 applicants, and we'd spend the first 2 semesters sorting through all of that. So it was a very demanding situation, and I wasn't up to snuff. But that wasn't my vocation in life.
I see.
So my wife at the time and I got in the van, and we traveled west and we ended up in New Mexico at a massage school.
Yeah.
And learned 6 months, 1,000-hour training massage. We learned about hydrotherapy, colonics, natural detox methods, herbal medicine. We were always doing detoxes and fasting. We had a group of old hippies that were now getting high naturally. Yeah. No drugs, no alcohol, and yet we get high on wheatgrass juice and fasting, cleansing, saunas, all of that in massage. And we were learning a trade. So that was good. And came back to New England, and we worked with the Hippocrates Health Institute with
Ann Wigmore.
Dr. Ann Wigmore in Boston. Wheatgrass, Rejuvelac, and going to the raw foods and the raw food diet.
Tell people what Rejuvelac is.
Well, it's a fermented wheat.
Wheat, right?
Wheat berries.
You sprout the wheat. You sprout the wheat first, and then you kind of filter or blend it. What was it again?
No, you didn't. You just drink it right out of the bottle. I mean, and then we had wheatgrass growing, and we would grind the wheatgrass and drink the chlorophyll, and we get really high on that.
Oh
wow.
yeah, I got dizzy once when I drank too much.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's powerful stuff, but it cleanses the blood and is very close to the hemoglobin. So the transference of iron and cleansing, it still works today.
Oh, absolutely.
And they bottled it and. They freeze dry it, and they do all sorts of other things with it now, but barley greens is the same idea, to cleanse the blood. Mm-hmm. So we worked with Hippocrates. We do colonics, massage, sitz baths, and we'd have groups come out to our house in Wellesley. We'd feed them, we'd take care of them, and that's when I was studying acupuncture and Chinese medicine. So I was able to start to, bring that experience with the people and the clients I'm working with, and then acupuncture and learn through all this. All my education through my clients and patients, they always take me to the next level.
I see.
It's always been that way. And I found myself going to Europe on a regular basis, trying to find out the real knowledge. Meaning that the Germans...
A lot of root studies were done in Europe.
Well, homeopathy came out of Europe. And so the apotheques, or the homeopathic pharmacies, are very prevalent there. The herbal knowledge is very prevalent with the people.
Yes.
And if you're not practicing some sort of alternative medicine in Germany at the time in the 80s, then they wouldn't go see you as a medical doctor.
True.
There was a more preference with somebody that had alternative insights.
Yeah.
But now that's...
And by the way, you didn't have that many specialists in those days. There was a lot more general practitioners who would come to the house when you needed them. You had your own doctor, and the doctor, if the child was sick, then they would come to the house and just do these home visits.
Well, as a child, I remember going to our family physician in his house in Brookline, Massachusetts, and of course, I was just young, 6'8". I didn't know any difference, but they wanted to give me a vaccine, I don't know what it was, tetanus or something like that. No way.
You were 6
with
or
a
8
white
years
coat.
old.
Even at that age, I was running away and underneath the dining room table, and he couldn't catch me. I mean, I was the same way with church.
Yeah.
You know, with the tie and having to just go to church. You know, Episcopalian. You know, the smell of the Easter and the bonnets. I mean, church, any structure situation was not my cup of tea. I just didn't like to be put in that. My friends' parents would try to insist, your son, you're talking to my mother, your son needs to go to church, you know, more regularly and be part of the choir. I want to take him to the choir and get him more involved with the church.
Yeah.
So she takes me to the choir. I do, a musical rendition of Onward Christian Soldiers. It was a one-on-one, not interview, but audition.
Yeah.
In order to get into the church choir.
Yeah.
I had to do, and I didn't want to do this
You
at all.
probably botched
but
it.
I did what I could. But he said, "No, you're not material for the choir." Oh, was I blessing God? Thank you. I was reprieved. I was a bit of a rebel as a kid, and always a wild child. I spent most of my early childhood in Cape Cod in the summer times, outside in nature. That's where I always go for healing. That's where I'd always go for recreation and peace. Because that's the only thing that really made sense.
Yeah.
I mean, nature is honest. It speaks to you in
Nature
a real
nourishes.
way. And she can reprimand you very severely, but it's truth.
Yeah.
Right now what we're seeing in nature is not truth. This artificially created.
A lot of
Whether
things,
we're
yes.
living in a hologram of some sort, we'll wake up from, who's to say? We're in a whole new world right now.
Yeah.
But these early childhood memories is what I draw upon, what I go to, what our early childhood development is really the character that we build for ourselves, who we create, how we create ourselves. But no, structure, school, institutions, that was not my way, not my path. So, 44 years into Chinese medicine, it's energetic medicine. Okay, I call it medicine. Medicine means science. It's an energetic science. It has a wisdom to it. It has a knowledge. It's based on natural principles and observation.
Yeah.
And so that's where I draw all of my insights from, is that background and backdrop of the lineage of true. When the communists took over, it's a whole different story. Chinese medicine went down the tubes.
Oh, wow.
All the high-power elite people in music, in education, in the arts, they had left China. They went to Taiwan, Canada, Vietnam, Europe. And so we benefited in the West from very high luminaries in Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
I met one of them through my illness that I spoke of, that I came down with in Southeast Asia in my travels. I came down after the motorcycle accident. Instead of going to the ocean, I took antibiotics, broke down my immune system. I was doing a lot of drugs at the time, just recreational, nothing, severe, but it broke down my immune system over time, and food, nutrition, and travel, stress, whatever. But I came down with septicemia, a blood disease through the wound.
Yeah.
Got into my blood, infection. So 9 months later, I'm wondering what to do. I'm with the Buddhist monks in Bangkok, and it's a long story. I have many stories to tell along the way.
Yeah.
But through that insight, and they were going to send me to the southern monk to do some herbal medicine. I was quite ill, quite sick. I decided that probably I would end up dead if that was the case. I made the decision to go back home.
Okay.
And landed in Moscow, 24 hours in Europe, and spent 3 months in Europe, and ended up in a hospital there for 2 months in a hospital.
Was that in Switzerland?
Intensive care. They didn't know what I had. Malaria, whatever, night chills. But it turned into osteomyelitis in the bone is what it was.
Oh, wow.
So my father came, picked me up, you might say, in England, brought me back, and I was in his hospital for a month. And that's where I finally turned around and came out of it. But I think it was the touch of a Cuban nurse that came in at night that offered a back massage that really made me want to live. I could feel, just the love. Love is the bottom line healer in all of this. And love is the key. And that's a heart-based centered reality, not in the mind. The mind is a very tricky, powerful tool. And what's between this ear and that ear, dictates a lot of how things come down and how we regulate energy in the body.
Yeah.
And so in the Chinese perspective...
I know it's true. I mean, everything you say, it makes total sense, because I have seen too many people also throughout the years, and once they understand it, it almost seems like once you explain concepts and people get it in their head, it directs to the heart. And it seems like there is a certain feeling of peace about, okay, everything is going to be okay. That's what I notice.
Well, disease happens in fight and flight.
Yeah.
You're being chased by the lion, you're being, you got to respond, you got to go, you got to do, you got to be, you're in this constant stress situation. And that's the X factor for everybody, managing stress. Do we have the tools? Are we brought up with tools that we can utilize to manage stress so we don't take it out on our spouse, our wife, our kids, our dogs, our horses? We find expression for it in a healthy way, because we all have feelings. We need to allow these feelings a life.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel good about a certain situation, you're going to need to give it a voice. You need to give it an expression. So how I work with people, over the years has evolved through my insights and travels. I mean, I study classical homeopathy. I'd go for weeks on end in Pennsylvania in the summer times and study with the classical homeopaths, and learn all that system. I'd go to the Ayurvedic homeopath.
Ayurvedic homeopath. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we're yogis,
yes.
and use the homeopathy in a different, insightful way, but from an Ayurvedic perspective.
Super interesting.
Yeah, he was a yogi. At the same time, the Ayurvedic medicine, Dr. Ladd was coming. He had already been here for several years, and I just meet people through my life course and travels that very auspicious but very high level of awareness. And as my Chinese doctor, Dr. Chan, no, not Dr. Shen, he was the first one that. I never really studied with him, but he was a master of the pulse. In fact, I have a book this big written about all his knowledge just on the pulse.
On the pulse?
Yeah, Dr. Shen. Yeah. He was a luminary. He's one of the old school guys that I went and first saw when I came out.
He just feels your pulse, and then he can...
Tell you all about your life.
No way.
Oh, yeah, he'll tell you, you're involved with a business partner you can't trust. I mean, I listen to this day in and day out in his office in Bayard Street in New York City. He would work on the weekends there, and I'd drive him back to Massachusetts, where his clinic was 5 days a week, and then we'd drive back. And Dr. Shen, he was the fellow I went to see after I got out of the hospital in New England and started teaching spiritual healer, this was the beginning of my path through my illness, through my sickness, and I was in a back brace. They were going to operate, take vertebra out of my back. I recovered from all that, saw a spiritual healer, met an acupuncturist there. He told me about Dr. Shen. I started to work with Dr. Shen in exchange for treatments. I'd drive him back and forth on weekends. Yeah, it was awesome.
Was he an older gentleman?
Yeah, and very revered. I mean, in China, he was very wealthy. He had a bodyguard and someone to carry his money around. He said his estate was the size of the Grand Central Park in New York City.
So?
And it was all shaped in the dragon and all the feng shui, and everybody did their own style, kung fu and all the old school, really ancient knowledge, but still connected that.
Yeah.
I mean, he would tell me stories, but he didn't talk that much. He would be quiet during the time of travel. That would be his meditation time. But he would wake up, Thomas, slow down, speed trap. We'd be going through Connecticut, in it's 55 mile an hour zone. I'm going 75, slow down. Speed trap coming up, and then he'd go back to sleep.
Really?
And I slow down 55, and then okay, now you can go. And sure enough, there'd be a state cop in the corner. Oh yeah.
Was he holding your pulse at the same time?
No, he was just sleeping. But he was in tune.
Yeah.
And he told me stories about the I Ching, and he was one of those feng shui masters, the old school, and he came here because he had to leave China because the communists took over, went to Taiwan, Canada, and then he saw nobody know anything about acupuncture or Chinese medicine. He spent his whole youth learning herbal Chinese medicine, 6 hours a day. I mean, strict discipline. Same with my other Chinese doctor, Shen. Chan in Rockville, Maryland, 6-8 hours a day as a youth, doing calligraphy, learning energy, discipline of calligraphy, the movement of qi, and he went back to that. Dr. Chan did when he developed cancer as a result of going through the communist revolution, starvation, all of that. He developed a tumor, and Dr. Chan, he was one of my other mentors in Chinese medicine. I went to school in New England School of Acupuncture. It was the first school started up in the United States, so I could get licensed.
Yes.
But most of my training was, through hanging out with these people.
You bet. The practical training and listening to
the old school apprenticeship type of situation.
Yeah.
Formal education. But my time with Dr. Chan, 2.5 years, we'd talk about moral character, ethics of these acupuncturists and how they're advertising. Developing your character was more important to him than learning all the points. And, all the points had been changed from Chinese mystical names, like the twin mountain, what is it, Dantian, 3 extra miles. All the Chinese names for the points all have references to, different inclinations.
Okay.
When the communists come in, they gave them numbers.
Oh.
Took away the spirit.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they changed the language. They took away the spirit.
Yeah.
So my work is more spiritual. The political aspects of what's going on, I mean, yes, I had to fight for my right to practice acupuncture. The Quackery Bill, 1984, Claude Pepper, in defense of the elderly. Acupuncture was quackery. It was in the quackery. We had to go before Congress, testify, Yeah, they were going to just get rid of it in the beginning.
Unreal.
Well,
but that was the plan.
Well, AMA, FDA, this is a threat.
It was too much of a threat, right.
But,
right.
They included crystals and stone and healing and herbs and all of that kind of stuff. But my early training was, colonics, massage, and Western herbs. Then when I got into acupuncture, and then I would drive every month. One weekend I'd spend in Boston from Washington, D.C. I'd drive up just to learn Chinese herbal medicine.
Really?
After graduating from acupuncture school and finally getting a license. But it wasn't until I think 82 when we had the National Board for Licensing, the National Commission for the Certification of Acupuncturists. We established that and got it under the wing, and then we had a legal precedent. I think there was 5 or 6 states we could practice in. Oh, but I had to practice under direct supervision of a physician at first.
Really? And he or she would let you do that?
Well, it's all about the money. The
see.
patient has to see him first. They get their money, then they can see the acupuncturist.
I see.
And then that's direct supervision. Indirect, direct supervision, you'd have to be on the property. In D.C., I had to have a medical doctor where I practiced. I'd practice in his office. He was a very good cardiologist. But he allowed me, but it's all about the money. And funny, one of the physicians in the office was Chinese. So here we have a Chinese doctor, Western chain, and then you have a white guy, me, I'm an acupuncturist, studying Chinese medicine. It's kind of interesting dichotomy, because Western science in China, they grabbed hold of it right away. The miracle of antibiotics. The Jesuits brought antibiotics to China, and so people would set up these outhouses.
The Jesuits brought it to China? Huh.
And they took from the Chinese some of their knowledge about acupuncture. Yeah. But they gave them antibiotics, and so the local Chinese, this is a great opportunity. We can cure everything with these Western drugs. So we'll give everybody antibiotics. It didn't matter what they had. So they'd set up these little booths, and they'd sell the antibiotics and make money, and cure everything. So, they started switching, Western medicine, Western science, more stronger, But now we're starting to see, it's only been 150 years, Western medicine. Chinese medicine has been 4,000 years. It's well proven. If it didn't work, people wouldn't be using it. And so, very powerful tool. You stick a needle in somebody, it's not a hypodermic needle. It's not, how should I say, destroying tissue. You're pushing tissue aside. The very thin 32, 34 gauge wire, and we're just pushing tissue aside, but we're trying to locate the qi, the energy in the body. It changes from season to season where it's moving in the tendons and ligaments. But it's a separate system of science, meaning that they put nuclear injections into the acupuncture points and found that, okay, it's not part of the circulation. It's not part of their nervous system.
What you mean? What nuclear? What?
You know how they trace. They
wanted to prove that it worked or didn't work.
Well, they wanted to see what happens. They inject a nuclear dye, and traced it and followed the line of the meridian, but it's not part of the circulation, nervous system, or lymph system. It's following the tendons and ligaments.
I see.
Oh, very fascinating. Oh, this is the Koreans did that work. And then the Germans wanted to, identify these points electronically. Okay, so the Voll System in Germany developed, measuring the points emanating energy out of various meridian systems to diagnose disease.
I see.
And they really got into what was so fascinating in Europe is the whole gray area of preventative medicine. For a while in the late 80s and early 90s in Germany, this was a big deal. They wanted to somehow understand and reverse aging and dying before it happened. It makes a lot of sense. I think, what's his name, the health guru, what's a big fellow, I forget his name.
German?
Huh?
A German?
No. He's American, but I mean he's very into testing and genetics and reversing illnesses. But in Germany, they did an interesting study with Kirlian Photography, for instance. It's the emanations of the auric field of the acupuncture points on the fingers and toes.
Kirlian,
Photography.
Kirl.
Yeah, it's not like going to
a
a New Age health festival where you get pictures taken. Oh, look at your aura and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of funny, but no,
he was a Russian. Is that right? Or Soviet?
The Kirlian.
The Kirlian
Could be.
I thought so.
Okay. And they would measure it, and they could get
So he developed a camera or something to measure that, right? Is that
well,
what it
they
was?
took pictures, Kirlian photography of the hands and feet, and they could, you have a flare coming off of the baby finger here to the right. You have a mitral valve prolapse.
Oh.
How did they figure that stuff out? And that was fascinating to me. It's like
you bet.
they put the science, with this energetic, and they start to correlate information and start to see that this is a science of energy, and they could measure the points.
Yeah.
Is this an excess energy coming out of this point or a deficiency? Is that related to the organ? What remedies can we do to complement and have a sympathetic resonance where we can balance that out? We're talking to the body, and the body's talking to us, and we're starting to get insights into what's really going on. The liver qi is deficient. Why? Why? And that's Dr. Shen. He would take the pulse, and he started asking questions inside his own mind.
Okay.
Why? And that's why he would come up to the idea, you can't trust your friend, that you're getting in business with. He's just taking the pulse. Never met the person.
Wow.
Yeah, and he'd say these things. How do you know all that? What is going on?
Yeah.
Well, you go, why? I asked him times. How do you get it? Well, why? Heart disturbance. What's that? The emotion, worry. What are you worried about? There's fear. You can feel it in the kidney pulse.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would cause that kind of situation, And then his spirit guides or whatever, would give him more insights.
So you're talking literally about the pulse of certain organs. So you say the kidney pulse or the liver pulse or the heart pulse.
Yes.
So when you feel you feel the wrist or the pulse, right? Then there is different vibrations coming right through the pulse.
Yeah, they put it into a very beautiful, eloquent system. Meaning, this is a spring onion pulse. If you touch the spring onion, it's a little hard on the outside, and then it's soft, and then it goes to the other side. What does that mean? Spring onion pulse. Liver qi, wind condition, or something like that. This is how we start to analyze. This is tight pulse. Very differentiations and different positions. 12 different positions. Bladder, kidney, triple warmer. We call it the triple warmer is the endocrine system.
Okay.
There is no nervous system in Chinese medicine, which is interesting. They were doing heart transplants back in 400 BC. I mean, they're recorded in Joseph Needham's books all about the ancient, China and what they were doing way back when.
Yeah.
I mean, this is fascinating stuff.
Absolutely.
I have friends.
I mean, you to hear that, you think, how is that possible? But as you mentioned, we're talking 4,000 years of learning and gradually and passing it on from generation to generation. So the knowledge that was normal for them 150 years ago, 200 years ago, 400 years ago, is new to modern science. And so they have a hard time accepting that because they want to have proof of everything. And there are just certain things the technology doesn't exist to always prove everything. We're getting better at it, but you wonder how necessary is it? When you learned about this, you were not worried about, show me on a piece of paper how all this works, because you were practically learning from a Dr. Shen and other doctors you would meet in Europe and in Australia and where you've been. You would learn from these doctors the knowledge that had been passed on to them and that they had put into practice. So you learned verbiage, you learned terminology, you learned the practicality and feeling the body and listening to the body. And that is, in my opinion, a part of the science that is really not educated anymore, especially not in American medical or modern medicine, let's call it that way. It is something that has been almost pushed out. And so what you're saying is fascinating because it's totally for you. You've done this for so long. This is totally real for you. It exists.
Well, it's just energy.
Yeah, it is energy. And people say, energy, what are you talking about energy? And I tell them, how do you send a text message to somebody in Europe or in wherever you were, in the next town? How do you do that? You send a text message, they get it a second or two later, and they respond. How many cables do you see going through the air? It's all energy. And that is a good thing that I have to say about modern cell phones, that people start to understand the concept of like, yeah, indeed, how am I able to communicate with other people if it's not energy?
Well, in the old days, they do it in the cloud, but they do it spiritually, telepathically, energetically. This is how we communicate as shamans.
Yeah.
We have connections on the other. We're in the iCloud.
Yeah.
Spiritually, we're on the other side.
Yeah.
Part of my illness, spent on the other side, very sick and very. So that's familiar ground to me.
Yeah.
The other side, I mean, the near-death experiencing that. Is there a death? Well, it's just portals. Energy can't be created nor destroyed.
Yeah.
We come, we go, we were born. I don't know your spiritual belief systems, but 100% of our conditions are in consciousness as far as dis-ease.
You bet.
Why are we incarnated here and all of this process? These are spiritual beliefs and spiritual understandings, whether you adhere to them or not, but energy can't be created. And that's what I see in the practice of medicine now. It's become weaponized against the people, and it's not there as a benefit, but it's a way to extract their money, their funds, their resources, and they're not receiving good benefit.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean all doctors are bad. No. My dad was a doctor. He had a great heart, but he couldn't practice within the system. He had to spend $45,000 a year just paying off the system to be able to practice, meaning malpractice insurance, parking fees, hospital fees, all of these things. And then he was, I couldn't go watch him deliver a baby in the hospital because that's against hospital rules and, various situations. But I mean, many doctors are controlled by the system. They'll find a good chemo that works, very inexpensive, but they can't use it in the hospital system because they've changed directives from where? The pharmaceutical companies. Oh, who owns all the pharmaceutical companies? Who owns all the banks in the world? Same family, same people. Who are they and what are they about? They don't use chemo and radiation to treat cancer. They have, similar technology, energetic, like medbed technology is the big word out there. And unfortunately, people are looking for something outside of themselves to heal themselves when the power is within them. And that's really the key that I have to reinforce within people. What's going to empower you through this process or get disempowered? Unfortunately, people are getting disempowered by the medical healing operation that's going on here because they're not part of the process. They're a victim of the circumstance.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
looking
yeah.
for help and assistance, and they have, a malpractice situation develop as a result of a procedure, and now they have complications, and then they have other complications, and they're stuck in the system. I see it time and time again. A stage 3, stage 4 cancer, how we deal with that. And then they put them out, there's nothing more we can do. I see so many of them. That's when I get the patients. It's like after they, it's like, sorry, there's nothing more we can do.
That's
We did 5 rounds of chemo.
Yeah.
We did radiation.
Yeah.
Okay, well, sorry. And now you're all jaundiced and there's nothing else we can do for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And then I'll see the patient. It's like, God, you guys are criminals.
So one thing that I feel about this is that doctors, they say there's nothing else I can do. And they're absolutely right within their limitations of what they're allowed to do because of pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies telling them they have funneled the power of the doctor into such a small specific area that when they say there's nothing else I can do, they have reached the borders of how far they can go. They have reached their limits. But when they say the way we have been trained now by doctors and by the media about all this is that they say when a doctor says there's nothing else they can do, it sounds like there's nothing else that can be done. And that is the confusing thing. And I want viewers to understand that, I had a doctor on the radio show once and I said, when do you give up? When do you give up as a physician? And he said, when they quit blinking their eyes. And that is very different than when you say, well, when the therapy doesn't work, we just give up. No, we have to just dig a little bit deeper. And then the history of Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, South American medicine, Greek medicine is coming up to the surface for those who have studied it and who know about it. That, and besides that, it's not about the fact that we're going to die. It is about the quality of life that we can live. And sadly enough, too many people are going through these horrible, horrible treatments, thinking that is what it is, that is going to heal them, the chemo and radiation. And we are zooming in on an area, let's say in this case cancer, that we actually need to recognize that the cancer is there for a specific reason. There are some people who get cancer because of exposure to horrible chemicals and that have been settled in their body, but other people get cancer for different reasons. And sometimes cancer is the wake-up call. So cancer is where the body says, you're going to have to get back on the rails because you got off your rails and we need to get back on. And the only way to wake you up and do something specific about it is to give you a disease that is a big wake-up call. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, life doesn't happen to you; it's happening for you. It's a matter of our attitude, how we take these situations and. I mean, I look at it from a spiritual perspective. Medicine is the practice of medicine. The art of healing is a whole nother realm, which is considered quackery from the medical science point of view. But they haven't censored, they haven't incorporated, this is part of my consternation and also emphatic need here because I see the future. I mean, this is all going to crumble down. I mean, the medical system, the way it's set up financially and so forth and so on. I mean, I want to preserve the arts of homeopathy, of osteopathy,
Osteopathy?
Osteopathic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've been invaded. The naturopathic schools are useless. What they're training, how they're working now. They're invaded by the AMA. They have to sign endorsing of antibiotics. Most all naturopaths, excuse me, guys, I'm a naturopath trained in Europe in biological medicine, but I'm sorry, you guys are thinking like Western doctors, you're acting like Western doctors, and you want to be, full prescription rights. That's all suppressive medicine. It's not naturopathic medicine. Naturopathic medicine is healing from within. taking what's vital energy and enhancing that within your body, not suppressing the disease symptoms. And that's Western medicine is based on false premises that this bacteria, this bug is creating your problem.
Symptomology. They work with symptomology.
It's terrain. Internal terrain is the key. The biome, the internal environment, and how we cultivate that and organize these bugs for our benefit. You know, the body is always trying to heal itself. And so we work on that premises. But we've got to bring a chronic degenerative situation, because I've worked in cancer in Mexico. I've worked in dental clinics back east, you know, with mercury detox. I have a lot of experience with detox and IV work and what they did. And I don't use any of that. I don't need to do. I can do natural principles, but we apply certain knowledge to our medicines or herbs, you know, and how we apply them at the right time, at the right place for the greatest effect to bring the life force back from a degenerative to an inflammatory response, and then the body can interact and start to feel normal again. You know, these people that come in and say, I never get sick. I've never been sick for, 6 years. I never had. I said, oh, shit, I'm sorry. I mean, in other words, there's something blocking their immunological system from interacting with their environment.
Really? You feel that?
I see that.
Oh.
And I mean, sickness is your body's interacting with the environment. It's responding to the environment. I want an immune system that's awake and alert and interactive with the environment. So responding in that way is healthy. If it's repressed and not recognizing things, it might prevent certain illnesses from occurring, but there's something else that's the immune system is preoccupied with. It's more dangerous. And it will get you out later on. But, these things I see because I look at live blood. I do dark field microscopy. I learned it in Europe back in the 80s.
That's a fascinating topic, dark field microscopy. Right?
Well, it's archaic in the sense that because they can't derive sufficient knowledge using dark field, medically speaking. Okay? Meaning that they need to stain blood, spin blood, identify organisms in blood in electron microscopy and viral entities, things we can't see in dark field. Dark field is more an observation. I just look at blood and look at blood. That's all. I'm not diagnosing. I'm not seeing.
The blood is telling you.
Well, all life is in the blood therein.
Interpret it.
Biblically, all life is in the blood therein. Is reflective of your consciousness, your mind, your emotions. But how I was trained, it is more on the esoteric level of a holographic appearances that I see in blood. In every drop of blood, as Edgar Cayce say, you can quote diagnose all the situation, but I'm not diagnosing diseases. I'm seeing imbalances. Okay, we got extremes in this area. We got deficiencies in this area. Why? But what happens when I take a drop of blood and it lands on a slide, all of a sudden there's a crystallization of consciousness.
What do you mean by that, a crystallization of consciousness?
Well, Rudolf Steiner did a lot of work with the blood and etheric nature, the energetic nature of blood and staining of blood and these etheric energetic spirals that even diagnose illnesses just through the understanding of the nature of blood. Fascinating in the fibrogenic nature of blood, just how blood dries. In Europe, it's been studied close to 100 years now, and they'll correlate with all the medical effects. So I look at dry blood. I correlated it with years of testing, stool tests, biological terrain assessment, meaning blood, urine, saliva, pHs, oxidative stress values, mineral ion concentrations. I would test a patient after fasting 16 hours. After their evening meal, they come in, collect the first urine. We do a saliva and blood in the office. We'd measure the pH. We'd measure the oxidative stress values. This is an instrument developed in Europe, in Germany, to test water originally. And it's called biological terrain assessment. So we have an objective means by which now we can put information in, get objective results, and see exactly where a person is imbalanced in regard to perfect health.
You bet.
And so we would apply that knowledge to what I see in the blood, or I do a hair analysis of all the mineral ion concentrations of heavy metals, for instance, and I look at the blood. Okay, I do stool tests, parasitic forms, fungal forms, look at the blood. I start to correlate this information. I see these particular patterns in the blood, okay, this translates into this kind of situation. So right now, after 40 years looking at thousands and hundred thousands of blood slides, you become very aware of what's happening within a person's consciousness.
Yes.
But when I'm talking about the crystallization of consciousness, there are crystals that form when the blood hits the slide, cover slip, boom, there's patterns that develop. They crystallize. So my school of dark field is quite different than everything you'll see out there, meaning we're looking at these stagnations. I'm looking at blocks in consciousness, events, traumas that happened. This lifetime, I don't know. I mean, I don't need to know.
Wow.
But I see the results here and now. And the blood's telling me, okay, this is what we need to do to facilitate more vitality.
Yes.
You see deficiencies in iron levels and things like that, but I'm not here as a nutritionist to diagnose that, but certainly I want to be aware of those situations. But it's a matter, okay, what's holding this person back from, suppressive from candida yeast byproduct. Okay, parasitic byproduct. I mean, you talk about cancer. We've seen a 550% increase in cancer the last 4 years.
No way.
Way. I have a text from an oncologist, 25 years in the business, never seen anything like it. Can't understand it. These are not natural occurring cancers. They're going from stage 2 to stage 4 within 6 to 8 weeks is totally unheard of. What's going on here? We're at war. When I saw this COVID situation coming across my desk in blood, I said, someone's declared war on humanity.
Wow.
This is an insult and injury that's diabolical in nature. This is totally unnatural. If I look at blood from 5-6 years ago, I'm in La La Land. I'm happy. I see rainbows and butterflies. It's so simple.
Yeah.
I see what's coming around now, and it's a freaking nightmare.
Unreal.
Every single case, it's hand-to-hand combat with what's going on. I mean, it's exhausting. It's self-replicating. It's artificial intelligence now. We got all sorts of weird shit happening, and people are saying this and saying that, and, who knows what, and everybody's coming on the line with dark field microscopy and saying, these are all parasitic forms and these are all this, that. I've been looking at this stuff for 30, 40 years, so I can see what's new and what's different. And there's a lot that's different, but there's a lot that's the same that they're calling something different. Yeah. I mean, and you can get very similars as far as, graphene oxide and seeing that in the blood and identifying that. No, I'll leave that to other people. That's not my constant. I want to just say, how can I make you better? What's going on today?
Yeah.
Originally, Chinese doctors just talk to you. What's going on in the family?
I see.
How are your relatives? How are you getting on with your kids? If that's okay. Nutritional.
And then they feel the pulse, and then
nutritional deficiencies was a big issue. So we'll give you some herbal medicine.
Yeah.
Last resort, acupuncture is very invasive. Stick a needle in somebody, but we're not cutting tissue. Like I said, we're just contacting the energy, and then we play around with it because the meridians. They come in through the fingers and toes. They form energetic patterns. It's science as far as how it flows. Time of day, what points, water points, earth points, fire points, all have different effects. It's from a tributary, a brook, a stream, to a river and a pond, to an ocean of energy that we're tapping into.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and every organ has an emotion. So we have an intelligence is, okay, I can see it in the blood. I can see a person come in from a honeymoon. Okay, look at their blood. Somebody has just lost a spouse or something. I look at the blood. Okay, you can see emotions in the blood. I can tell you, okay, this is a sadness you've carried for a long time. I can see it in the blood. I know it's weird, reading to you. I'm a quack. Okay, I'm okay with that.
No, well, but I wouldn't say that because I've known you long enough.
But I've seen some things in here that flip my brain. I mean, I go out on a limb and I said, really? I mean, I'm seeing, I can tell you stories.
Well, I would like you to come back and talk more about this whole dark field, and especially what you just mentioned, how you have witnessed an unbelievable change in reading the blood ever since COVID started and people have been exposed to COVID itself, the COVID disease, and COVID vaccine and booster shots. And some people one shot, some people are completely boosted up. And what you have noticed in the blood from those people, I hope you come back and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share all of that because it's been quite a, how should I say, insult to injury. I mean, COVID's nearly taken me out, several times over.
Yeah.
I mean, and trying to get a handle on what's really going on. Mm-hmm. What is this? This ain't a flu, a virus. It doesn't act like that. It takes 9 months to clear it out. Why? I mean, what's really, I've been poisoned. I mean, the first Delta variant, December 2019.
Yeah.
I got exposed. I didn't know it. I came into the high school here in Christmas vacation, whatever. I don't know. But I was dealing with something. I knew a virus. Usually in the wintertime, you incubate, although you get a bad virus. Well, I had a hip replaced 6 months prior to, a lot of anesthetics, a lot of heavy metals from they had to. Yeah, that's another story. So anyway, I had all that going on, and then I came down in January. I was down in Jackson Hole, very cold. I went cross-country skiing, and I thought it was just a cold. I feel like I'm having a heart attack.
Yeah.
Then it got stronger and stronger, and I call up my partner at the time, and I said, hey, I think I'm having a heart attack. I'm not sure. I'm going to take my medicine. I'm going to drive home. And then I was, 12 days in bed. And, laser treatments and all sorts of things. Just, I was lucky to survive that first poisoning.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's poison.
You have learned so much, and so your knowledge you have literally integrated into your daily life and what you do with that. That is why when you work with people and help with the blood and understand and diagnose and feel the body and see what you see, has been it is who you are. It is not a profession anymore. It is the Dr. Thomas Sexton is what you get. Everything that you have experienced is coming out through your work, and that is, to me, is like a passion. And I do know that you have said that you were thinking about retiring, and you said what I have seen now, coming out of these 3-4 years of COVID, I cannot retire at this point. I need to help people, and I
just
think
keep them alive.
That is amazing. That's amazing. So
they'd come in with fevers. They'd come in. They wouldn't accept them at the hospital.
Yeah, that's true.
They wouldn't take them in.
So this
if you
topic,
had COVID, they'd stick you in the basement.
And I feel there you go. Everything that you have done has always been in the healing arts. You're a very unique individual, and I'm very grateful that I know you.
Oh, sure.
I am.
Well,
and
thank you.
I am. And I've talked to so many people who gotten to know you and who are so grateful that you have helped them and guided them and give them insights that they're going to take with them for years, decades to come. And I think that is the wisdom. Wisdom is not the same as knowledge, and not everybody understands that. And I feel that you have literally, with your humbleness and humility, in listening to your teachers, whoever were your teachers, and respecting them so much that you said, okay, I need to know how to place this, and you have literally integrated it into what you have become. And I hope you continue for as long as you want.
Thank you very much for that compliment, and I appreciate it. And like I say, I'm not a social media guy. I don't do this. I got a lot backed up.
This is your opportunity.
In my system. Okay, well.
This is as much social media as you get.
I'll need a month's worth every day.
Well, I want to thank all of you for viewing. As you can tell, when Dr. Sexton and I start talking, we need a lot of time. And it is hard to limit that to about 40, 50 minutes. So we have gone longer than that, but I just totally enjoy it. And I hope you will tune in for another episode of Health in Focus with Jacobus, and definitely check out more episodes with Dr. Sexton. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Visit healthinfocusnow.com.